I'm currently 30 years old, and from the outside looking in, I've been really lucky with some career opportunities. I've toured and played shows in the majority of the states now and through parts of Europe, and I've worked with some pretty recognizable artists on big stages and from behind the scenes. But that's just the social media lens. Today I'm gonna pull back the curtain and tell you what it's really like to make a living off of music side hustles. Not just the usual, you're gonna be broke, change your major, don't do music. No. We're going over the real stuff. I graduated from the USC Thornton School of Music in 2015 with a degree in music industry. I had a ton of enthusiasm and no idea how to get to where I wanted to be, which is playing guitar for pop artists. I was also hit with the equally palpable reality of having to pay my own bills, so I strung together a series of music side hustles to make ends meet. Number one, I was working on music productions for small artists. My first big project right out of college was a guy I had met through a songwriting workshop, and he had a worship EP he was working on, and he ended up hiring me to do the production. At the time, I was charging $650 per song, and that included me doing everything. Recording all the instruments, coming up with the parts, arranging the song, mix and master, and I ended up doing that for several different little artists. Second, I got a job as an audio producer for a Christian and spirituality podcast. I do everything from cutting really long sermons into 3 or 4 individual episodes. I would add in the intro VO, I would add in the music, mix the levels of dialogue, and that job paid me an hourly wage. It was entry level and it was a part-time thing, about 20 hours a week. So while it wasn't a ton of money per week, it was guaranteed money per week, and that's huge. Probably no surprise to any of you who watch this channel, I was heavily involved with church gigs. From about 2015 to 2017, 2018, I'd say I played 80 to 90% of the weekends in a year. I usually got paid anywhere from $100 to $350 for the whole weekend. I grew a ton as a musician. I learned a lot about tone and how to perform a song the same way every single time. I enjoyed the people I was doing it with, and secretly I was kind of hoping I would meet pro guys who were doing what I wanted to be doing. I would become best friends with them, and then like the next day I'd be on Taylor Swift's tour. It didn't really pan out like that, obviously, but I did meet quite a few people who were in music. Fourth, I was an audio engineer at a vocal private lesson studio. Essentially, when one of their vocal lesson clients wanted to record a demo, they would reach out to me and have me man the studio. So I would engineer the vocals, I would produce the vocals, edit, mix, master. Occasionally they would ask me to play guitar on the project as well, so then I'd get like an extra $150, and that was like a really big deal. I'd say most of those projects were probably like $100 to $300 depending on what it was. Number 5, I was mixing and mastering songs. Most of this came word of mouth. I was charging about $175 to $250 a song. With what remaining hours I have, I dedicated that to career development. I tried to post a new cover song on YouTube every week because I was building a portfolio of things I could show people. I was researching and reaching out to different music directors who were working with the kind of artists I hoped to play for one day. I would reach out, introduce myself, and ask if I could take them to coffee or lunch, or even just get on the phone with them and hear about how they got to where they are in the industry. And that was super invaluable and is the thing that ultimately led to me getting my first legit touring gig. Finally, I was auditioning for gigs. The cattle call audition thing was still very prominent in this industry, so anytime I saw a posting for a gig, I would submit to it, and that meant rehearsing materials for the audition, driving to LA, waiting an hour to get your name called, playing for like 1 minute, and them saying, okay, thanks, we'll call you, and then they don't call you. I kept up this blistering pace of side hustles from 2015 to 2017, and it was honestly both mentally and physically exhausting. I was constantly looking for my next job, and that's a thought that never left me even when I had my next job lined up. I could even have a really big month and make maybe $6,000 to $8,000, but then I would look at my calendar and see, oh my gosh, the next 3 months are completely open, I have no work, what am I even doing? I felt like no matter how many side hustles I added, I wasn't getting any closer to being a touring guitarist, and 2, no matter how many side hustles I added, it seemed like I wasn't really making a dent financially. Those first 2 years after college, I made under $40,000 a year. And when you factor in the cost of living in Los Angeles and Orange County, that's not a ton of money to be living off of. When you're working 50 plus hours a week and you feel like you're just scraping by, it's pretty discouraging, especially when you look at your peers on Instagram and their entry-level pay was $80,000 a year. I would just look back and be like, you know, I took 12 AP classes in high school. I never got a B. Maybe my parents were right and I should have just got that business degree. I was thinking about quitting it all, but then in 2017, the game changed. I got my first legit tour playing for Rebecca Black. I wasn't making mad money by any means. This was an entry-level touring gig, and I was indeed entry-level because I had zero experience. But I thought this would be the beginning of the snowball for me, that this gig would tip me into the next gig and it would just keep escalating and I was set for life. And it didn't quite work like that. This tour led me to my next tour about 6 months later, and then after that point it was kind of like a 1 week thing here, or a fly date here, a fly date there. I never arrived in that inner circle of like 5 to 6 guys who seemed to get all of the pop gigs. And as such, I had to continue doing every side hustle I was doing since college. This is the thing I wish my professors had actually told me. It's not that I wouldn't be able to make money doing music, but in order to pay my bills, the most likely outcome was I would have to do a series of side hustles that were all somewhat low paying. I would have to answer to 4 to 5 bosses at a time. I would have to constantly put myself out there and play the social game of trying to befriend the right person, still continue to get better and better at my craft, and also find time for sleeping and having a life. I am so grateful that I finally broke into that touring world, but I was so exhausted. But the exhaustion was worth it because I was starting to feel fulfilled in that I was moving towards my ultimate dream. I was playing shows outside of church, I was getting to travel and play guitar. So if that meant I had to hustle through 7 jobs at a time, then so be it. But financially speaking, it was hard because I was running around and driving around Southern California so much more, and I was making only about $40,000 a year. This isn't to say 40K isn't a real sum of money, but based off research, to live a comfortable lifestyle as a single adult in Southern California, you need to make about $77,000. In my best year of business, I still didn't even make $77,000. And real quick, if you're enjoying this story, I would so appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video so that maybe one day this side hustle can become a main hustle. Let's go ahead and fast forward to 2021 and skip over the pandemic entirely because that just derailed all of us. I was faced with the decision of, do I want to continue grad school or give one more go to music? And my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, told me, I think you owe it to yourself to give it one more try. And so I decided to do just that. I started up as many music side hustles again as I could. Went back to music production, podcast engineering, playing at church, guitar lessons, and tutoring. Basically, I started working myself to the bone again, and then the most incredible thing happened. When I was making my usual rounds of emailing various music directors, one of them actually responded back and asked if I would be interested in a job. It would be a full-time assistant role, and I would be helping him with a lot of Ableton prep, a little bit of arrangement, maybe some help at rehearsals. I took it and I entered into my first year of financial stability as a musician. It was amazing because I grew so much in my understanding of Ableton, playback programming, and arranging songs for live. I also continued on my side hustle grind, partially fueled by the new job situation, and I was able to do some of the best gigs of my career so far. I got to music direct and play guitar for Emlyn for multiple tours in both the US and the UK. I got to play guitar for Echosmith, I got to work with Weezer, and I got to MD several other pop and rock acts. Having a steady gig in music helped me to feel free for the first time in my professional career. I didn't have the anxiety of, am I gonna work this week? Am I not? Do I need to be sending more emails? Am I doing enough to put myself out there? But seriously, when you aren't only focused on survival, it's amazing how much your mind frees up. And it's also amazing how many new champagne problems you have. I don't say this to sound ungrateful because I'm definitely not. I would rather have the new set of problems I got than my old ones. But what I found was, while I now had this consistent thing, I was able to limit my side hustles down to 3 or 4 things at a time. But even with that, I was working longer days and more days than I ever had in my life. I would get up at 6 a.m., I would hop onto my computer and start working through arrangements and getting Ableton together. Then at 9 a.m., I would switch over to my day job and do my assisting gig until 6 p.m. And then I would switch back to what I was working on in the morning. So from 6 p.m. to like 10 p.m. or to when my brain just couldn't take it anymore, I would go back to working on my side hustles. I was really stoked about where my career was and where it was moving. But on the flip side, I was more mentally exhausted than I had ever been. I made a decent living, though still under the amount you need to be comfortable in Los Angeles and Orange County. And music became a true job. And I think that's something a lot of us, myself clearly, underestimate when you start making a passion your main job. Sometimes these things don't feel quite as joyful. Unfortunately, I was laid off from my full-time position in March of this year, so I am now back to full-time side hustles until I figure something out, which is honestly both freeing and debilitating. I know I've said a lot already, so I just want to leave you with two main takeaways I wish I could tell my young pre-college self. Doing something you love as a career is a worthy pursuit, but doing one that you're built to do is a better one. It takes a special kind of person to grind like this for the rest of their life, and there are honestly probably more efficient and better ways to enable yourself to do music. Things like starting your own business, or getting a job that has truly flexible hours, or even a work from home or some sort of remote job. I wish I had invested in these kind of pursuits out of college rather than taking any sort of job that had music in the title, regardless of what it paid. Number two, the side hustle and freelance lifestyle is highly glamorized on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, but the reality is you would probably have more freedom in your schedule if you just took a normal 9-to-5 job. Most music side hustles don't pay well enough for you to do just one, or at least until it scales up, which takes time. So the majority of people are gonna end up like me and having to string together a variety of different music side hustles. This ultimately means working longer days and more days. To be honest, I'm not completely sure. I haven't reached that superstar level of sideman in my career, but I have had some really good successes, and I'm really glad I pursued it, because at the time that was the question I was asking myself. Can I live with myself if I never gave it a go and I never tried music? So no matter what level I was able to achieve, I knew I could at least be happy with myself that I tried. I still don't know what's next, and that is a real struggle. I know I love guitar, I love YouTube, and I love telling stories, but in terms of what that's gonna yield as a job or a career for me going forward, I still have no idea. All I can do is surrender it to God and just pray that He uses it and leads me to whatever is next. He always does, very rarely in my timing. Likewise, I can continue to take action and keep applying to jobs. I am 90 applications deep with nothing to show for it. So for everyone in that boat, I get it. To everyone in the music side hustle game, or even if you're just at home thinking about pursuing a career in music, I hope you can find encouragement in my story. It's a hard road, but it can be done. You just gotta keep your head down, keep grinding, keep putting yourself out there, and keep pushing forward. Also, if you happen to have a podcast that needs an audio editor, or you need music production, music mixing, mastering, guitar, whatever, you can always email me through my website. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so comment them down below, and be sure to leave a like on the video before you head out and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you next time.